Hi kids, this is teacher Vidya. My aim is to make you all to explain what led to the decline of the Mughal Empire in the 18th century. Why do parties lose elections? Parties lose elections when they become unpopular due to corruption or bad administration. If defeated after a long term in office, it can be termed as the decline of a party. Who was Nadir Shah? Nadir Shah was a Persian ruler who attacked Delhi in 1739 AD after defeating the Mughal ruler in the Battle of Karnal. His soldiers plundered Delhi and killed many people. Nadir Shah took most of the wealth of the Mughals back with him, including the famous peacock throne of Shahjahan and the Kohinoor diamond. He attacked Delhi because he knew that the Mughal successors were very weak and it would be easy to defeat them. The attack and the plundering of Delhi was a blow to Mughal prestige. It announced to the world that the later Mughals were weak and the Mughal Empire was disintegrating. Yes, India faced more inventions after this attack. Ahmad Shah Abdali attacked India soon after in 1748. There were many factors for the decline of Mughal Empire. Some of these were Aurangzeb's policies of religious intolerance and his untrusting nature. The empire had become too vast for the weak rulers to control, and the administration officers had become lax and corrupt. When they started extracting more revenue from the peasants, it led to revolts, which in turn started weakening the Mughal Empire. The Mughals employed people from diverse cultural backgrounds as part of their policy, which worked well under strong rulers. However, after Aurangzeb's death, they split into their own communal groups like Irani, Terani, and Hindustani, giving rise to court politics and neglecting their duties. This made the officers very corrupt and they started using cruel methods to extract more revenue from the farmers. Let's explain about the emergence of states like Awadh, Bengal, and Hyderabad as regional powers. The Subhas are Awadh and Subadas Adat Khan, Bengal under Subadar Marsid Kyoli Khan, and Hyderabad under Subadar Asaf Gha. These regions were very rich and fertile because they were situated on the alluvial plains. Most of these Subadas also held important positions in the military and therefore had strong finance, hence became powerful. Being part of the court politics, these Subadas managed to acquire important positions by winning favors of the Mughal rulers. In their own regions, they got rid of the Mughal Jagirdars and the Mansabdars by getting them transferred. In order to be fully in control, they got the land reassessed for revenues and introduced the system of Ijardari. This was a right given to the highest bidder to collect revenue. They brought in their own people to look after the administration and slowly started creating independent kingdoms for themselves. Since these Subadas had managed to procure these regions through special favors from the king, they probably did not want to offend the rulers and other nobles and avoid competition. They had good relations with the rulers. For example, when the Nizam of Hyderabad made a suggestion, the Mughal emperors agreed to carry them out. In such a scenario, it was definitely wiser to show their faithfulness. Let's explain the emergence of Rajput principalities as independent states in 18th century India. What words have you often heard being used patriotically for motherland or homeland in film songs and poetry? We often hear the word Watan being used for motherland. We located the Rajput states of Jaipur, also referred to as Amber and Jodhpur. Jaipur was under Raja Jai Singh and Jodhpur was under Raja Ajit Singh. Both the Rajas were important to the rulers as they were loyal, were good military commanders, and therefore were conferred with good governorship, salaries, and jewels of honor. Watan Jagir of Rajputs. These regions were called Watan Jagis because, even as imperial officers, they were allowed to control the regions they belonged to, which were called Watan Jagis. The Rajputs had proved their loyalties to the Mughals and were thus given autonomous powers to rule their homeland. In the 18th century, during the decline of the Mughal Empire, these rulers took advantage of the confusion and used their powers and resources to expand their Watan Jagis. Raja Jai Singh took Bandi under his control, whereas Raja Ajit Singh annexed Nagaur of Jodhpur. They were able to do this because they had acquired a great amount of wealth as governors in Gujarat, Malwa, and Agra. The Rajput chiefs were unable to expand their regions beyond Rajasthan because they were challenged by the Marathas in the south. The Marathas were united and challenged many powers in India, including the old Mughal Subas. Whereas the Rajputs continued to be divided and were involved in petty wars with each other. The governors brought peace to the regions and made the trade routes safe by suppressing the repulsions in the region. They protected the regions from the Marathas by recruiting skilled warriors, especially in the states of Hyderabad and Bengal. They later made peace with the Marathas and brought in new administrators from other regions to work towards taking these states to prosperity. Following the Mughal tradition, which was not followed in Delhi anymore, they started recruiting people from all communities to keep the peace. The Subadas did not trust the Mughal Mansabdas because they suspected that they would pass on information to the rulers about the real state of affairs in the states. The Subadas did not want new competition from the ambitious nobles and hence thought it best to keep them away. Also, they did not want to share the revenues of the state with the Mansabdars who were authorized to collect it. Why was Idradari introduced? The Subadas were aware of the unfair practices of the revenue collectors who kept a fair share of the revenues collected instead of sending it to the Mughal treasury. In order to keep the officers on their toes, the Subadas introduced a new system called Ijadari. In this system, the Jamindars had the right to collect the revenue and submit a fixed sum to the state. In case of failure to do this, the right to collect revenue was taken from the Ijadar and given to someone else. This ensured that the Ijadas collected revenue on time and submitted it to the state too. The Ijadars took loans from money lenders and bankers to submit to the state in case of crop failure. Since these regions had important and secure trade routes, trade flourished here. The wealthy traders often gave loans to the Ijadas to pay their share of revenue on time. This made the traders very important and powerful politically. Thank you so much, kids.